Welcome to the Scrum.org Community Podcast, the podcast from the home of Scrum. In this podcast, Agile experts, including professional Scrum trainers and other industry thought leaders, share their stories and experiences. We also explore hot topics in our space with thought-provoking, challenging, energetic discussions. This episode is a recording of a live Ask a Professional Scrum Trainer episode where a live audience joined to ask their burning questions and brought their current challenges to an interactive session with a professional Scrum trainer. We hope you enjoy this episode.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to today's webinar, which is Ask a PST. Where we take your questions and we have two experts here to give answers. Hopefully, answers that are helpful. And today's topic is on leveraging AI to become a more effective Scrum Master. The two expert PSTs that we have here are Miriam Blommers and Saeed Azarfan from the Netherlands. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Miriam and Saeed, we have a new PSM, Professional Scrum Master AI course, which you guys contributed largely to the development. So I think that is a great opportunity for everyone to get some questions in that they might have. So quick recap, who's Scrum.org? We're founded by Ken Schwaber, who is the co-creator of Scrum and the founder of Scrum.org. Our mission is to help people and teams solve complex problems. We are in the area of training, education, and certification with a global community. That's why we have somebody like Saeed and somebody like Miriam here with us today. And so actually, Saeed, could you do a quick introduction of yourself?
Yes. Thank you, Patricia. Saeed Azarfan, as you already said, I live in the Netherlands, close to Eindhoven, so I'm in the south of the Netherlands, together with my wife and 4 kids. PST since 2019, so that's almost 7 years. Again, mainly focusing on Scrum Mastery, but also on product ownership. And lately, of course, into the AI thingy. So really happy that the PSM AI Essential class is finally live. The first classes were fantastic. Really looking forward for the next bunch of courses. And really looking forward to today and all the questions that are out there. So let's make it a nice session. Then my colleague, Miriam.
Hi guys, Miriam Blommers. I also live in the Netherlands, in the southern part, for everybody who knows the country a bit. I have been a PST since 2020, a bit shorter than Saeed is. I'm living in the southern part of Holland with my boyfriend, so that's really cool. And I'm also really focused on Scrum Mastery and making sure that it's a human change we're going for, a human-centered change, and not only just going through the events. So I really like doing that. Adding to that, I like to be very creative with stuff. So and AI also helps with that. So I add that too to my list. Looking forward to today, seeing your questions, and hopefully we can answer everything.
Right. Okay. So let's get into the questions. Thank you so much for that. And of course, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Patricia Kong. I'm with Scrum.org and have been at Scrum.org for maybe 12, 13 years, largely working with the team focused on enterprise things and, of course, looking at our learning products and leading that for now. So this is an interesting space, obviously, for us from a learning perspective. So let's get to the questions. Again, you have a Q&A panel where you can post some questions for Saeed and Miriam to address. So let's start with the first one that I see. And Saeed, Miriam, feel free to jump in. Outside of using prompts, what way is AI able to reduce or help, oh, this is a big one, with the work of a Scrum Master? Saeed, do you want to start?
Yeah, I can start. Let me check. Outside of using prompts, of course, prompting as an important aspect of working with AI. Um, in what other ways can it help to reduce or help with Scrum Master works? Good question. I think it's also where we focus on the PSM AI class. We have different topics over there where we first focus on you as a Scrum Master and how can AI help you to fulfill your job better. We cover things indeed over there like how to improve your prompting to get more out of your request. But later in the class, we're also diving in lots of topics on how you as a Scrum Master can serve your Scrum team and your organization better. And it's mainly also focused on how to improve your Scrum events, for instance, how to get more out of your sprint planning with the use of AI tooling. So I think AI can help you in all domains. I think it can really help you to prepare yourself better for events that you have, for important conversations that you have planned for the upcoming days, to sharpen your soul, but also really on practical things during Scrum events, during team meetings. There are a lot of different use cases where AI can help you to be more effective. And yeah, then the question, I'm doubting a little bit like reduce your work. I don't know if it's gonna reduce your work. I think it can improve the quality of the work you're doing. So I'm not so sure whether you should start delegating your work to AI tools or AI agents. But I really think if you use AI in the right way, that the quality of your services will be improved drastically. Miriam, do
Maybe,
you? Oh, sorry.
yeah. So Mary, maybe specifically. So one of the I'm not too sure if this is what Femi is looking for, but specifically, like if you're not just thinking about prompts, right? So obviously you need to work with prompts when you're using AI. Is there something specific that they can be thinking? Saeed brought up agents. That's another large conversation. But
Yeah.
what would a Scrum Master use in general, maybe AI to help support their work and their team?
Yeah, so I think there are different topics you can go to. One of the things I really love doing is asking AI to help, for example, with creating retrospectives. Which kind of techniques can you use? So with workshops and that kind of stuff, it's a good way to have somebody to talk to spar with, and to see what can we do with that. But on the other side, you can also have a conversation about and to see, this is what is happening in my team. What are maybe some things I can try, or which cool practices we can use because we're struggling with this and that. Normally we would go to internet and go to Google, right? And we Google it and we find a lot of things. And now with AI, you can ask so much more details. You can give so much more details in your prompt, which gives you so much better answers than just a list of practices or whatever. So I think those are the things which can really help do other stuff. And of course, what you already said, Patricia, everything starts with a prompt, right? So you will start with a prompt, but you can also create very easy nowadays a video, for example, a teach or something you want to explain something else. So there's so much you can do, and so many things which used to be out of reach. For example, a few years ago, making a video, besides having it on your phone, right, but just having a really good video was so much work to do. And nowadays we can do it maybe within 15 minutes. That's really cool.
Hmm. Um, Thank you. I think this is another, so this looks like a popular kind of question about how can AI, or what AI tools specifically, but how can AI um, help with sprint planning? And I think this is interesting because obviously you can use AI to extrapolate a lot of data, right? And so in sprint planning, now you're going to be talking about things like, how do we know what our capacity is? Somebody used velocity. in their question. But what kind of AI tools are Scrum Masters using specifically that can help them improve sprint planning?
What we see nowadays with a lot of organizations is that they only can use like one or two AI tools, right? So we see in the Netherlands, we see a lot of Copilot, for example. So the different AI tools, I would really suggest checking what can you use within your organization, and from there check it. So if you are using, if you can use one of them, I think you said it already, Patricia, do an export of your information. Make sure maybe you can make an agent if you are allowed to, and make sure that you can give it a lot of information, like the holiday plannings, or who's there, who's not there, and see what it can do for you from a sprint planning point of view. So we tend to not go into too much detail about different AI tooling within the training, just to make sure that we use the ones you can use within the training. So we are not, we didn't go into a lot of different AI tooling which are there, just because we know a lot of the people can't use them.
Right. But outside of the tooling, Miriam, what are some popular ones?
Popular ones for what? Sorry.
Like, what ones might you be seeing with some of your customers that are popular in the Netherlands?
So you mean from AI tools?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we see Copilot a lot. We see ChatGPT a lot. We see Claude a bit more nowadays. So that's coming up too, which is also a really awesome one. I know that I just was with a customer yesterday, and they are using Gemini. So we really see different things coming up. And it's so up to the organization what they choose. And some have a few, some only have one, some have only the free version, for example, of Copilot. There's really different things.
Yeah. And that's going to, again, like you were saying, depend on industry, what's allowed. If we say, I'm not necessarily going straight down the list, I'm trying to make sure we can have a cohesive discussion. But what has been your experience, and what would your advice be about using AI as support for sprint planning, and thinking about things like velocity and forecasting, and does it help when the team is creating their sprint backlog using AI?
So I think there are a few things you can do. So I would really use AI to, for example, create that really touchy and tangible sprint goal, right? So we can have an idea what we want to do, but AI can really help sharpen that and make that even better. So that's one of the things I would use it for. One of the other things is really the metric side, right? So going into what can we expect from this sprint, but also maybe if you have that opportunity that you can connect your AI to your product backlog management system, are there any things, for example, with dependencies, deadlines, that kind of stuff? And do we miss anything? If this is the next sprint, do we miss anything from that point of view? But then there needs to be a connection to your product backlog management system and AI, right? Otherwise, it would be a really difficult thing to do so, and you probably need to have Power BI or something in between to go over that, and then sometimes it's also not possible. So that's also a restraint there. But that will be the two major things. And maybe a third one too, because if we look at the third step of the sprint planning, which is going into that actionable plan, right? I can imagine that you have some things over there which can really help with, for example, checking your DoD. Is everything covered in our tasks? Or is there maybe a list of tasks you want to check out and see how there's a match between those kind of things? So I can really imagine you can be creative there too. I haven't done it myself yet though, but that would be really something I would be curious to see how that works.
And having that discussion as a team, what the
see
boundaries
what we can do,
and what the checks are. Okay, so next question. The company that someone is working for has limited Jira license, so that has limited access. So how can they use AI to help them when they're trying to report and calculate different metrics like WIP, cycle time, and lead time?
Yeah, so I think you mentioned it already before, Patricia. So if you have the data, so they need to get the data out of Jira. And if they have the data, they can do fancy stuff with it in whatever application, whatever tool they're using. It could be Copilot, for instance. Um, so I think they need to look for someone who has access at the moment to Jira. And I think it's pretty easy to get data out of Jira. And once you have the data, you can play with it in with whatever tool you have access to. And then you can start uh, calculating capacity or throughput or average aging time or other fancy stuff, no matter what you're looking for. And I think once you have the data, it's also something we are referring to in class. The only limitation is your own imagination. So you can, whatever you can come up with, the tools can help you with it. Maybe it can even help you to come up with better metrics you're currently not using yet in the organization to start measuring what's really important in the organization instead of only focusing on the metrics that are already built in the Jira templates. So I think get the data, start prompting with it together with your teams. See what is valuable for your own context, and step by step get the most out of it.
Yeah, and I think that's the interesting thing coming from like a Scrum Master point of view is how can you use that data in a smart way, and how can it actually help? So, we can extrapolate data, but how can AI help us start to connect to different things where we would have to look in so many different ways? And how could we have different conversations with the product owner and enable the team?
Yeah,
Okay.
and I do think you first need to have those conversations, like what is really important for us? What do we really want to measure? And if you have a clear idea on what you want to measure, then I think the next step using AI to get those insights is not that difficult. But we shouldn't focus too much on the tool, of course, individuals and interactions over processes and tools. But first, having those conversations with your product owner, with your team, with your stakeholder, like what is the information we are really looking for, and if we have a good understanding about that, I think AI can really help us to get those insights in whatever way you want it. Whether you want to have raw data, whether you want to have images, or as Miriam said before, you want to have AI generated videos, or everything is possible.
Cool. So this is an interesting conversation. So Miriam, I have a kind of a two-part question for you, because you are very focused on human centricity. And so when Saeed is saying everything is possible, and we want to know how much is possible. So Gianluca has a question that is around the notion, should the Scrum Master be coaching the Scrum team in how to use AI for their work? So that's one part, right? Should the Scrum Master be doing that? And the second part is from someone named Christian, who is what parts of AI should the Scrum Master amplify, which is versus what parts do we think that is necessary to have an human involved, or what part should be really human only. So the way that this person asks is, which parts of the Scrum Master role should AI amplify versus which parts must remain deeply human to keep our team a healthy, complex, adaptive system? And blending that with Gianluca's of like, how much do we coach as Scrum Masters around AI?
Interesting questions. Let's start with the first one from Gianluca. I think there's different sides to this question. So one of the first thing I would say, yes, we can coach our team to at least start with using AI. On the other hand, they do stuff we don't always know what to do, right? For example, if I'm in an IT team, I'm not sure I can tell them how they can use AI to do their work. But what we can do is challenge them to see, hey, how can AI help our team? What can we do to maybe automate small tasks to make our life easier on the small annoying stuff, right? How can AI help us do other stuff within the team from a product point of view? So I do agree that we as a Scrum Master need to help the team with learning how to use AI, but also how to use it in a way which is still okay. So are we allowed to use AI tooling which we can't use from our from a state of the company? Is that okay to use that or not? What do we do with answers from AI which we can't explain? Are we going to use those answers or not? So I think there is an ethical part to this discussion too. But I do really think if we don't step on that AI train and start using it and start seeing which use cases work for our teams, we are missing a train. And we need to make sure we keep an eye out on what's happening. And it's changing fast. So everything we're saying now will probably be outdated in 3 or 6 months from now. So that's also a struggle. How do we keep up to date with everything? Saeed found just a few weeks ago, he found out that we can make movies nowadays with Copilot, which is awesome. But you need to find it somewhere that it's there, right? Because it was something new. So from that point of view, yes, I think we should coach and help them to start using it, but also have an eye out that you might want to pair up people, because you always have the early adapters and you have the ones who are maybe a bit more hesitant using it, right? So pair them up, let them see how it works. And I think from there, we also have a role as Scrum Master to give an example. So if we use it in a proper way as a Scrum Master, then maybe also the people in our team who are a bit hesitant to start with it see that it is possible and it's not as scary as we sometimes think. Of course, there is a whole scary side to everything AI, which is happening nowadays. But if we have that good conversation and we use our brains to really look into what is happening, then we can still use it. And that's also, I think, where Vladimir comes to. I think that we can do a lot as Scrum Masters that AI can help us with. But in the end, every answer you're getting from AI, you should use your own brains. Is this the way we want to go to? Is this helpful? Is this something I can explain why we're going to do this to the team if we're starting doing something? I had a few weeks ago, I was coaching at an organization and I was preparing a retrospective and I was a bit struggling, like, what do I need to really do in this retrospective to help the team? And then I had that conversation with AI, which we all do, I guess, somewhere in time. And then AI went into a kind of a train of thoughts where I was like, is this really what I wanted to do? And I was doubting, so I didn't use it directly. I checked with one of my team members, like, this is the thing I'm thinking of. What do you think? And from that discussion, we had a better idea. And then I went back to AI and said, okay, this is what we want to do. Help me out to figure out a plan and how can I do it? Which techniques? So if I used that first idea from AI, it wouldn't have been a good retrospective. After having that extra think time and checking it with one of my colleagues, we did have a really awesome sprint retrospective. So keeping in mind that it's always the human side will be there, and AI doesn't have feelings or whatever, right? So that personal side and that having an eye out who is in the session and what do they need, AI can't do for you. We need to feed AI with that kind of information to have the best answers. So yeah. So I think that there's maybe nothing I can think of nowadays where you can't ask AI to help with, as long as you make sure that what you're using is really something you agree with and you think is the best idea to do so. And then from that point of view, I think you can ask it almost everything, as long as you don't give it personal information, that kind of stuff, right? So, but I think that's obvious.
The security stuff. And that was I think you were helping on Christian's question. But it's interesting because he specifies healthy complex adaptive system. And what you were talking about is, of course, you can use AI, think about the impact on things, but when you're talking about feelings and behaviors, that's very complex. AI can't see it. That really requires engagement and
Yes.
coming back, revisiting, having conversation. And that's a great question for actually Vlad. Hello from Toronto. Saeed, we were talking about this a little bit. So Vlad's questions is wants to know, what is your take on the belief that AI, in caps, AI is replacing Scrum Masters and Agile coaches? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think Vladimir is definitely not the first one who's asking that question. And I truly believe that AI is not gonna replace us as Scrum Masters. However, I do think that Scrum Masters who use AI, they are in a far better position than the Scrum Masters who don't use AI or who don't bring AI to their teams and to the organization. So I think it also touches on that question before, like I think it was from Gianluca about should the Scrum Master coach the team using AI. And sometimes it's scarier because AI is changing so fast. There are new tools and everything is, well, we never saw a technology changing so fast. And we think as Scrum Masters we need to have the answers to all the questions our teams are having. And I think that's definitely something you need to get rid of, that thought, because you won't have all the questions about AI challenges, AI possibilities. But I think having the courage to bring that topic, to bring that conversation to your team, to your organization, like, hey, how are we going to use it? But also start using it yourself, start experimenting with it. And I definitely think then that you don't need to be afraid of AI is taking over your job. It will only make you stronger, more powerful. You will start having more impact within your team, within your organization. So I understand the question, but I really have the idea that it's not so far at the moment. And the other side, we don't know where we will be like in a couple of years from now. But for now, I really think it only strengthens us as Scrum Masters, not only as Scrum Masters, product owners, developers, every professional. It can increase our impact so much. So please start using it. Even if you don't know how to start using it, start experimenting with it, with small experiments, see how it benefits you, bring it to your team. Like Miriam said before, have that conversation like, what is a use case that we can start off, and let's inspect and adapt 2 weeks from now. What did it brought us, and what's next?
And that's the key part for me, is that there's this kind of fear going around, but it's about, do people, or how do our organizations truly understand what the accountability of a Scrum Master is, or the role that an Agile coach takes? And with something like AI, it's kind of like with anything, you can go really fast but go the wrong way. And so
Yes.
are we keeping transparency, inspection alive, and adapting as necessary, and empiricism? So I think actually more than ever, having that guardrail and boundaries is important. And maybe it's 2 weeks. Maybe we find out now with AI it has to be 1 week, right? Those sprints. So it's
that's a nice discussion also. Yeah, the sprint
a nice
length.
discussion.
What's
Yeah.
the impact on that?
Okay. So Miriam, there's some questions in here about, okay, so let's try it out, right? So what would you say? There's questions, if you're watching with me. There's Christian who's saying, hey, what's a simple AI experiment that you could try that could help make the team be happier, more effective? So thinking about that, like, what's a simple AI experiment? How could you simply introduce AI into your team?
To make your team happier, wow, and more effective. Well,
That's pizza. Pizza. It's always pizza.
Yeah, that's true. Pizza or cookies. That always helps. Well, one of the first things I would think, and what I still see nowadays, a lot of Scrum Masters are doing that. Their retrospectives, they don't use a lot of different techniques, right? And I think one of the big things to make your team happy is to really facilitate them in that that learning environment, and making sure that we do that every sprint. So maybe one of the big but easy things too, because you can just prompt this, you don't need an agent or whatever for it is. Just ask AI, hey, this is the situation in my team. We had a very good sprint or not so good sprint. This and this is going to did happen. We need to do a retrospective. Help me out. What kind of techniques can we do? And then make it fun, right? Because yes, a sprint retrospective should be useful, and we need to make sure we have those actionable improvements at the end, right? But it still can be fun. And the more different techniques you use, it's also more fun for your team members, right? If you do every sprint, and I'm assuming you don't do all of this, right? But what if you would do every sprint retrospective, you would ask your team, what went well and what do we want to change? If that is the question you're asking, we can do so much more. And there are so many techniques who help you find different answers also to these kind of questions. So one of the easy steps is just have that conversation about what can I do with a retrospective. So, and I think that really helps with getting your team happier. Because if we're learning, we normally are always, that's fun, right? That's what we want to do. And making those small steps as teams, so we grow together, we have a better team bonding. That makes work also more fun, right? If we have more people where we connect to and we understand each other from a personal point of view, right? Getting to know the person behind the colleague. If we do that more often, then we also have a happier work spot. I'm sure of that. So, and that can be done also within a retrospective.
Mm-hmm. And like you were talking about before, I'm sure the team can be happier if there's some things that could be automated using AI. So we're talking about using AI as a companion, but also what can AI do or streamline for us?
Yeah.
Okay,
But
so
also, can I add something? So also
absolutely.
from that point of view, you can also, nowadays we are so much on Zoom and Teams and everything, and you can also transcribe your conversations over there, right? So what if you have a really interesting conversation, knowing that up front, and you just start recording or only transcribing it and ask AI to make a summary, or ask AI, hey, we had a brainstorm session. What is the red line in here, right? So how can we see those? Sorry, I lost the English words. What are the connections?
Yeah.
Patterns, yes. What are the patterns in there? Because we can do it ourselves, but AI is so much quicker and sometimes even better than we can do it. There's so much more we can do.
Yeah.
And I do think like how to make a team more happier. And I think happiness is the opposite of frustration. Look what frustrates the team the most now. What is the biggest frustration in the team? So first have that conversation without thinking about AI or the possibilities with AI. What is our biggest frustration at the moment? And once you have a understanding about that this is our big pain point in our team, then think about how could we utilize AI to get rid of that frustration or to make it a little bit better. And I think that's also how you get more happiness within the team.
That's a good exercise, like, because you could simply just say, hey, as a team, how can we use AI, and just brainstorm in that. But you're saying, hey, what are we frustrated with, and what are those, and then how could we use AI to help us with those things? So I think that's pretty cool.
Can I add one more thing, Patricia,
absolutely.
to that? So I think what you've been also seeing and hearing us do is that a lot of the things we're saying is really Scrum Mastery stuff, right? Just looking at it from the other way around, what Shadi just said, looking at it from a frustration point of view, and then see how AI can help. There's so much which we normally already do as Scrum Masters. We just have an extra helper in our team nowadays. And that's how we can look at AI too.
And that I can't find the question, but I saw it. there's a flip side of that, right? So, what would you do loosely around that? The question was, how can you deal with are there issues, trust issues, psychological safety that a team might feel when you have a scrum master that's like, let me go ask my AI, and it's like, oh, did you stop thinking? Are you stop, are you the all the skills that a scrum master has to have, like, you're just going to ask AI now. How might that be? How do you know when you've gone too far on just like, let me ask my robot?
Well, I think if we as a Scrum Master don't have the knowledge about Scrum Mastery, we can't ask the right questions to AI, right? Crappy prompts, crappy output. So if we don't understand what we're talking about and what we're doing, AI is not going to help you. And I do think that in general, we still should be able to give the answers ourselves, right? So if your answer to everything from your team is I need to ask AI, I think you need to catch up with your knowledge on being a Scrum Master, because it is something big. It is not something you do in 2 hours a week, right? There's more to a Scrum Master role than that, and the accountability is really written really explicitly in the Scrum Guide, which says what are the accountabilities of a Scrum Master. And if we don't know that, and we don't know the Scrum Guide, and we don't know how Scrum works, and we don't know the environment, and we don't know our team, then how can we be a Scrum Master? So if you don't have that knowledge, how can you be a proper Scrum Master? So that's why I agree with Said what he said earlier. I really don't believe that AI will be our new Scrum Masters, because there's so much human-centered in the role and accountability as a Scrum Master, which AI can't do that. Because what we would say in the trainings too is, and Said started with this, so I'm going to steal his quote. See AI as a very smart Einstein, but it's in your basement. Doesn't see the world. He only knows what you were telling him. Yeah. And from that, he's going to answer you, right? Is that a correct how you explain it, right, Said?
Those are not my words.
Well,
but I used it once, yes.
Yeah. You've used it. So
thank you for clarifying. Yeah.
Yeah, from that point of view, if we don't have the knowledge ourselves, we can't be a proper Scrum Master, even if AI is helping us. And Excellent. Then from the other side, because I think there was also another side into the question, well, at least which I picked up from what you said, is how it's not only if you ask AI every time, but what happens in the team if you start, for example, transcribing your dailies without telling the team why you're doing that. That's also a trust thing. I just was with that customer I already mentioned. That just came up yesterday. And they started transcribing their dailies, and I asked, did you ask your team if that was okay? No, I just started doing it. I said, what did they say the first time you did it? Like, why are you doing this? What are you going to do with it? Right? So have that conversation too. We are still humans, and we still have feelings with when things are being recorded, and especially if we don't know why it's being recorded and what somebody's going to do with it. So that's also a part of the trust conversation you should have with your team.
And I also do think, like before there was AI, Gen AI, you also wouldn't tell every time someone asks you something, I'm going to ask my colleague, right? Mm-hmm. That's the same what you're doing now when you say, let's ask my Copilot, or let's ask my Gemini, or let's ask my ChatGPT. It's like, I don't have an idea, so let's ask someone to clarify this with me. Mm-hmm. It also says something about your knowledge, I think, as Miriam pointed out before.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that is a great conversation, and I hope people can have that kind of understanding with their teams. Let's move on to some. There's a lot more questions. Let's move on. I think this is from Patricia. Okay, so we're talking about being effective using AI, and if we're thinking about AI as something, or any tool really, that can help us be more effective as a Scrum team, what are some metrics that one could use to figure out if AI is actually helping the team and maybe yourself as an Agile coach or Scrum Master improve? And this person is looking for some concrete examples. Maybe it's interesting because it's specifically looking for metrics that is around Agile Coach or Scrum Master, but I kind of innately related that back to the team too. But what are some metrics that people could think about to see if AI is actually helping them?
I think from a team. Oh, go ahead, Seed.
I was just thinking: is it relevant that the teams use AI, or is like the question, how do we measure that we are successful as a Scrum Master? How do we measure that we are successful as a Scrum team, whether we are using AI in our development or not? Does that change the question?
That's a good Scrum Master answer. Thank you. Miriam, what were you going to say?
So I'm a bit, I already read the question, so I was thinking about it. I don't personally, I don't have any metrics on being a Scrum Master or an Agile Coach using AI if we got more effective or not. I do think that with the help we're getting is that we can do more in less time, because some things are just taking less time because AI is helping us. So from a time perspective, I do think we can do more. From a team perspective, if you start using AI and you can track, for example, the cycle time and the lead time for the product backlog items you're using AI in, I would assume that it could be, I'm not assuming, but I could be that those metrics will be a bit shorter because you get help from there. So that is an interesting one to maybe ask the group to start doing that, to flag the ones you're using AI, your product backlog items, and see if your lead time and your cycle time are reduced or not. My assumption is that it will be, and maybe not from the start, because you also, of course, need to start figure out which use cases will help you and how you do that and that kind of stuff. But if you get a bit of a hang of that, I do assume that those will be going down. I don't know with how much that will change also with getting more tools, but also getting more knowledge. But yeah, I think it's also market-wise. One market will benefit more than the other markets, I assume. But I think there's something to start measuring.
And there are of course questions coming in about like, oh yeah, what metrics would you use for a Scrum Master with that AI? So it's kind of what you both were talking about. And if we think about what the accountability of the Scrum Master should be in terms of the team, I think very much that way and value that the team is creating. Okay, so Saeed, I have one. I'm not sure about your experience, but do you have examples or some AI agents that are of a Scrum Master or coach that you've seen or created? This is from Ronald.
Sorry, I don't see the question.
It's can you provide some examples of Scrum Master or coach agents, AI agents that you've seen or created?
Yeah, I think there's also a lot of vagueness around what is an agent to start off with, huh?
And so it's inflated,
So a lot of people create custom GPTs, for instance. That's like an option you have in ChatGPT, but also in Copilot, and call those agents. However, those are not like real agents, like in the term of agentic AI. It's more personalized chatbots that you configured the way you want it. And I've seen a lot of those, act as an Agile coach with 20 years of experience in this type of domain. Always challenge me when I ask questions to you, and make sure that you include this and this theory. I think there are also quite some you can find as an open app in your tools, and they can be really valuable. I think we've talked before about seeing AI as a new team member. And again, over there, the only limitation is your own imagination. So you can create those custom GPTs or agents, who a lot of people are calling them, like the way you want it. And they really can be helpful as a sparring partner, for instance, when there are a lot of challenges going on in your team or your organization, to together discuss, like, hey, this is what I'm observing, and these are the patterns, so help me to find the patterns. But also, what advice would you give me based on all of your experience? They're also quite easy to make. Maybe we can, in the aftercare, in the show notes, or how I call those, maybe we can share some manual to create those really easily.
Or maybe a next webinar.
Next topic could also be one. I've seen a lot of those, and basically also within our own company, people start sharing those with each other. Every time people created a new custom agent that's really good in a specific type of service. They really
There have
can.
been like some agents where it can do sentiment analysis, right? So you can have people on the team kind of having different issues. Like I was thinking about it, how you might be getting different issues, and like people are saying from the team, oh, these are all the issues that I'm facing. And then if your agent understands sentiment analysis, you've trained it on that, then it can say, oh, these are, I'm very happy, positive, neutral, whatever. And then these are some urgent issues, and then that can flag. And so that's some different ways to think about
Yeah,
using
that's
agents for
definitely
that too.
the only thing.
But it doesn't replace the Scrum Master or Agile Coach.
Yeah, and it's not an agent as an agentic AI,
Exactly.
but it
Yeah.
can be really helpful, though, if you create those custom GPTs.
Yeah, you can create those ones, and then it's adding those couple steps after to make
Yeah.
it truly an agent that would.
Yeah, exactly. So I also have one. Maybe that's also nice. In my spare time, I'm a football coach for my sons. So I also have a custom agent who helps me with the preparation of all those training sessions, and the games on the Saturday. Saves me so much time to come up with good training plans twice a week, because I'm way too busy with other stuff. That is just a simple example where you can use those custom agents for. Again, I think also Miriam has a fantastic, should I call it an Agile Coach custom agent or a Scrum Master?
Yeah.
I think that's also a really nice example of it.
Yeah, I have a few, which that one is one I use a lot, but there's another one I created one with who writes like me. So I made sure that I had a lot of text which I've written myself feed into ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT to analyze my style, and also give him her, I don't know, give ChatGPT, let's say it like that, the information I would like to say, for example, in LinkedIn messages, but also if I need to do an introduction by myself or whatever. And it writes like me, and I always need to tweak some stuff, but then you can feed that back in, right? That this is what I changed, so this is what you created, this is what I made out of it. And it saves me a lot of time too. It's easier to make LinkedIn messages, but also updating your resume, that kind of stuff. It really helps. You always need to read it, of course, and change it to the last version of which really reflects you. But it saves me like 90% of the work is done by the custom GPT. Yeah.
Are you an agent now, Miriam?
No, I will never be an agent.
All right, so we have 10 minutes. We do still have some more questions. I thought this one was interesting. You talked about this a little bit, Miriam, from Valentin. So the question is, could you advise which practices might be considered risky when using AI in a Scrum team? And there's a good practice to, because you can ask your team, what do we think is risky? But are there some concrete things, examples that you've seen with your client, or questions that you've gotten in your training about this?
Well, I think we've seen a lot in the media about scary stuff which happened. There are a few examples in the training too. So, for example, McDonald's killed their AI order thingy, which was it's really hilarious to see. So, if you have some time, Google McDonald's AI ordering thingy. You will see awesome videos. But also things which were just not real, right? That an answer was used and AI was hallucinating. We have a nice example in the training from a newspaper in the States who created a list of summer books to read in the summer. It was a list, I think, of 12 or 20 books, something like that, and they were all fake. Not one of the titles was existing. So I think the one of what I said already earlier, if you can't explain what AI is saying to you, so the answer of AI you can't explain by yourself, you shouldn't use it, or at least ask for explanation, right? If you can't really grasp where it's coming from and what it is, then don't use it. So that's one of the big things from a risk point of view. And then on the other side, of course, sharing too much information, that's a risky thing to do. I
For our
haven't.
Scrum team also, thinking about any customer information that they've
Yes. So yeah, but not only as a Scrum Master from maybe personal point of view, but also the data you're using could be that it's just data which is really bound to your company. You're not allowed to put it somewhere on the internet. Is what we sometimes forget, especially if you, for example, have Copilot, which is so integrated in all your systems you're having nowadays. It's so easy to ask stuff, but we sometimes forget that it could also go into the wide web world, right? So that's something to keep an eye out. What do you put in there? If you wouldn't discuss it with your colleagues on a train station or in the subway or whatever, you shouldn't maybe also ask AI then that question, or at least make sure that you don't share specific information on that. So there's so many different risks to keep an eye out. That's one of the things we really emphasize also in the training, to keep an eye on all those different things, because it's not one part which is risky. There's multiple things which are risky. Yeah. Anything to add, Seed? Do we have time?
I think you nailed it, and I think also that's why a peer review will become really important. Like whatever is created by AI, to make sure to check the output. Does it make sense? Can we explain the reasoning behind it? I think it's spot on what you just said, Maya.
Thanks.
Excellent. I think we have time for maybe a couple more questions before we wrap up. There is a question in here. We talked about it a little bit before. So we talked about some things to be aware of. And I'm sure there are a lot of people dealing with this situation. I've seen it. But Darlene has a question. How would you help your Scrum team if the team members themselves are very skeptical of using AI or generally against it? And there's a lot of different reasons that might happen that I've seen. AI is, they have some personal reasons that they think it's not great, maybe environment, stuff like that, but also they think, oh, we don't need to do that from a development perspective. You guys keep it to your prompting, let's not make it complicated. What would you do what would be some suggestions that you might have to help those people?
Yeah, I think in short, I think first have those conversations about it with your team. Try to build trust within your team. Like, hey, how do we want to use it, and what type of agreements should we make around those? And what I always like to do is start treating it as an experiment. Let's do one experiment. Let's take, for instance, one sprint or 1 month for it. See, have a clear testing hypothesis related to it. What do we try to test in the coming month? Keep it small. Maybe also pick something that is not risky and just some not so also less important if it would go wrong. Start experimenting with it, and after that, inspect and adapt. See, really, did it help us? If so, what is the next thing that we could do? And often you see that the first step is the most difficult one, and when they put the first step and you see like, hey, maybe we shouldn't be afraid that it will take over our job, or that, because that's often why people are skeptical because AI, and they're also afraid for their own job. Then you see that after that first step, things probably will go smoother, but then also keep experimenting with it instead of going all in and telling your team what to do. So take it to the team, discuss it together, define clear experiments with clear hypotheses, and be honest to each other.
Yeah, and have an eye out when you have those first conversations. Have an eye out, why are they hesitant to use it? Understanding why they don't want to use it or they're hesitant about it also gives you probably more information about what kind of experiments you can start with. So if you have that transparent conversation about where everybody's coming from, it will help you in your follow-up.
And some of the follow-up, 20 minutes ago, Frankie Medina asked or suggested that something Frankie's been doing with their teams is to lean into AI by anchoring the Scrum events, by saying, how can AI contribute to this event? So, there's different ways to address that, but I thought that was maybe something
that's
that
a
could
great
be,
one.
that could be good. Thank you, Frankie. Okay, there's a lot coming in through. I've seen a flicker in the chat about agent. If you could set that into the Q&A. Let's end with this one for now, just because it's very practical. So a question just came in. It's from your experience, and I think we've given a ton. But what would you recommend as the main components for a great prompt? Is it the Roman approach? But 10 seconds. What are the main things when you're thinking about how to create a great prompt? Miriam.
Go ahead, Said.
Oh, go ahead, Said.
He created something awesome for the training. So
I think maybe that's also a nice step towards our training. In our training, the PSM AI Essentials, we're using crafts as an analogy for like the perfect prompt. And I could explain what crafts is now in detail. I don't know if we have time for that.
You don't have time, but you could just say each of the words.
Yeah, so it's context, it's reason or purpose, if you want to call it purpose. It's audience, so for who are you doing it? It's the format of the reply, for the format of the output. It's the topic scope, but also what is out of scope. And the S stands for source. So what are the sources we should use, or what are reliable sources in your context? And then we have an extra bonus, but that one I'm not going to give away right now. If that's
But just to repeat, that's crafts, CRAFTS. So that's the acronym that Said and Miriam created.
Because it's a craft. It's also a craft. It's more than just a prompt.
So thank you so much to everybody who's listening. There's more ways to connect with Scrum.org that I'm showing, or that you can talk to us through the forums, the podcast, webinars like this. And I think Miriam and Said, you have another webinar that's coming up around AI and Scrum Masters. Is that in May, I think?
May 19th.
May 19th. All right. So we'll be getting more into that. What's the best way that people might be able to contact you or stay in touch with you until then?
I think LinkedIn, from my point of view, is the easiest.
Same for me. LinkedIn is the way to go.
Or attend one of your classes to learn what the T in crafts is. So Pearl is asking. What is the T, Said?
The T?
In crafts.
Topic.
That's right. All right, so thank you, everyone. So many questions. We'll take a look at them to some that we didn't get to. Thank you so much to Miriam and Said. You have a great day.
Thank you, Patricia.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.